On this episode of Star Wars Time Show, of course you know what we're talking about. That's right, we've both seen it. It's time for our spoiler cast of The Rise of Skywalker. And we'll be ending with a nice little nod to the latest episode of The Mandalorian, S1E7, The Reckoning. What did you think? We'll break it down. Cue the music. Everybody, welcome to this super duper special edition of the Star Wars Time Show, and that's because it is finally here. I cannot believe it is here. The culmination of the Age of Resistance trilogy has come. Nick and I have seen it. We've digested it. I've seen it twice at this point in time, twice within 12 hours, as all good Star Wars fans should, at least those of us that have awesome jobs that get lots of free time. So anyways, we're here to talk about The Rise of Skywalker. I mean, there's no secret about that. There's going to be spoilers flying left and right. So if you haven't seen the movie yet, you know what? What's your problem? Go to hell. You should have already seen it by now at least twice. I'm giving Nick a pass because he had to work. Someone's got to pay the bills around here. So we're gonna talk a little Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker. Actually, we'll talk a lot of Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker. Who knows where the discussion's gonna go? We've got a list of bullet points we want to hit. Who knows if we'll get to them all? You never know what type of tangents we'll take, but we're jazzed up. We've had our little pre-game huddle. We've got a game plan. You know it's gonna go out the fucking window as soon as we start getting into it. But we're here to just kind of air our opinions, our feelings, maybe some grievances here or there for Trosh. You never know. I'm literally right out of my second screening, so I'm kind of shot out of a cannon. I can't even think straight right now, buddy. But wow, right? I mean, holy shit. That's I think that's the best way to describe my initial viewing. It's just like, holy shit, now I know what it would feel like to get hit in the face with a Star Wars fire hose.
Yeah, I mean, JJ, I don't understand where he lost time. Like, I don't know how he cut time in this movie, because it was literally like this movie from the second it started was just chock a block full of Star Wars plot, Star Wars, nostalgia, Star Wars little trinkets and everything. Like, have
you ever seen a pace that this movie carries for its first hour in I mean, clearly never in Star Wars, but in really anything. I mean, I just the first 45 minutes or so, it's truly nonstop. I know we say that a lot of times when we're critiquing films, like, oh, nonstop action. I mean, it literally is non-fucking stop right from the get-go. Right as those credits roll and disappear, it's on like popcorn.
Oh yeah, I've never experienced something like that before, where like literally if you blink, if you had to look down for some reason, like if you had to mute your phone and
you missed a key plot point, probably.
Yeah, exactly. Like, that's how fast and furious this dude was coming with the stuff. And look, like, I haven't seen, like you said, you've seen it twice already. I've only seen it once, and the whole time this is going on, I'm like, holy shit, this is this is too fast. Like, and we spoke about this a little bit before we got on the cast, and if you guys listening have read my review.
Please do. I want to promote that for a second. I think Nick did a really good job of reviewing this movie. Not just because I agree with it 100%. I'm not that type of fucking asshole. But I think he laid out some very valid opinions, and it comes from a fan perspective, obviously. But it's written in a smart way, and it's not snarky or stupid like a lot of these fucking pro critics are getting with this movie, or obviously like the trolls. So I just pump my guy up here. Check his shit out. He's good when he starts typing. He's good at it.
I can write some things pretty well every now and then. So, like, long story short, I gave the movie an 8 out of 10. And if you followed us along since before we even became the official Star Wars Time Show, and we were on the Entertainment Buddha network, you'll know that this is the lowest of the 3 that I've rated, but I don't want you to think it by any means that I didn't like this movie. I really enjoyed The Rise of Skywalker.
I could also give you this for your rating. If you really want to get down to it, I think it might have been higher if we used more of the criteria. I mean, sometimes I'll throw in like sound design and cinematography. Yeah. I mean, you went with 3 very key metrics.
Yeah.
But obviously, you could have layered some in and maybe padded it up a little bit.
I could have. Because I was sitting there, I was thinking, because like you said, I could add as many criteria as we wanted.
Yeah. The cinematography, by the way, is fucking fantastic. I mean,
yes.
JJ, I mean, if anything, if people want to bitch, go ahead and bitch, but you can't bitch about the way you shot it. I mean, Jesus.
Yeah. I mean, to me, like, the way it was shot, the acting, and the overall, like the back half of this movie, like post, like after the franticness really comes down and you settle into what I would call a relatively normal pace, the movie sings. So like my only problem with this film is that first 45 to an hour that you talked about, Matt, where it's just like constant nonstop here. Get this, here's this, we need to get this, here's how you get it, this is how you get this. Zori gives me a badge, all right, now I can get on the ship, and all, like, everything just happens so quickly and
smoothly, quickly, and I will note smoothly for the most part.
Oh yeah, I mean, like, things happen, like, it's not like, weird the way that it happens, but
I know you and we're in the know. We basically study this shit. I mean, it's a religious experience for the most part, right?
Yeah.
But I even feel like for common people, like we're the almighty fucking Star Wars fans. Yes, hear us from the mountain of Star Wars time, commoners. But like something like I went with my mom, and she's someone that likes Star Wars, but isn't studying every aspect of new projects coming out. And like I told you offline, I mean, she basically like, this could be my favorite movie. So even the fast early pace, the conveniences for the most part. I mean, there's a lot of plot convenience. Let's be real. Yeah. Like you said, oh, here's the chip. Now you can get in. Oh, here's this. Now we can go here. Oh, here's okay, fine, whatever. I mean, I do have to make a disclaimer here. I'm going to tell everyone, if you watched the first time and you felt a little discombobulated with this early section we're talking about, and it might have left a little bit of a bad taste in your mouth, please go see it again, because I'm coming fresh out of my second screening, like I said, and I can tell you I had a completely different experience. I don't want to make it sound like, oh, you have to see this movie twice to enjoy it. That's not the case. I really enjoyed my first screening. But the second one, having that first layer down, knowing kind of what was coming at me in that fast-paced, pew-pew-pew opening fucking 45, 50 minutes, really made my second viewing more pleasurable than my initial. And then there's other factors. I mean, when I go see a brand new Skywalker Saga movie, I'm almost having an out-of-body experience, dude. I mean, I was sweating everywhere. I could sweat under my tits, my belly, my balls,
Yeah, I mean, I told you, like, I was messaging you before I left. I was like, man, this is the first time I'm nervous to see a movie. I was like, I don't know. I'm starting to get, like, the shakes. And, like, yeah. I walked into the theater, and I was like, I sat down, and I was just, like, quiet. I just, like, kept my head down, and I was like, all right. I was, like, getting in a state of mental clarity. I was blocking.
That's what I wanted. That's what I want to mention about the second viewing. There is a new level of clarity when you go into it now, and that the clarity allows you to focus more on what was going on, what JJ and Chris and cast and crew were trying to do. And I did come away from my second screening with much more of appreciation for that chaotic pace. How it was resolved, some of the moments where, I mean, they were clearly designed for Star Wars fans to kind of hit you a little bit. They played the perfect musical tracks from John Williams' catalog to kind of ratchet up the emotions. But I really felt like a second screening helped to cement my overall opinion of the film, which was It's pretty damn good. It is different. It is going to catch you off guard a bit the first time you watch it. I mean, just like TLJ was unique in the way Ryan told that story and how, the professional critics ate that one up because it was more, you could argue, an artistic taste or pace, where this one is pure kind of just popcorn fucking fan service in your face. You guys want this shit? Here you go.
Yeah, I mean, it's one thing that we talked about a little bit is, when you see professional critics reviews, a lot of them will just take a ton of points off for stuff like that, for fan service and for kind of, for lack of a better term, pandering to the fan base of whatever it is. But like as a Star Wars fan and as Star Wars fans, that's the kind of shit that we eat up. Like
yeah, put the words together, fan and service. How are we going to hate that?
Yeah, like when we see Chewie get the medal at the end from Maz Kanata, we're like, yes, thank you. Like, Chewie finally got his due. And when we see Leia's saber for the first time and we're like, oh my gosh, like this is the shit that we've always wanted. Like professional critics and people who aren't, I don't want to say aren't fans of Star Wars, but don't want to see things that...
I know exactly what you're talking about. And this happens with MCU movies and really fictional movies in general. You can tell there's a set of critics out there that when they get the assignment, you can feel their eyes rolling like, fuck.
Yeah.
These, like the Scorsese arrogant take on the MCU, that shit. Like, oh my God, these fucking bullshit movies. This isn't cinema. It's like, go fuck yourself, dude. I mean, honestly.
Yeah, and I think that, when fans see this movie, and again, if you haven't seen it, you should probably stop watching or listening right now.
Well, sorry, I did say spoilers.
Yeah, but when fans see this movie, they are going to appreciate what's in it. And if you're one of those fans who's like, I didn't want fan service, then I don't know what to tell you. I mean, like, I don't see any reason that people who liked The Last Jedi wouldn't like this movie, and I don't see any reason that people who dislike The Last Jedi would dislike this movie. This movie is for Star Wars fans. It's for fans of all types, whether you're fans of the prequels, whether you're fans of the original trilogy, whether you're fans of the sequels. Like, there's no reason, and there's nothing that's in this movie aside from that like jarring, frantic pace in the beginning, like Matt said, but then once you move past that, the story that's being told and the way that it's executed, I thought was very strong.
Oh yeah, there's direct nods to all three generations. I mean, I really enjoyed how they shot the speeder chase on Pisana, because that to me was a straight up homage to the pod race.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, the way they're weaving through that canyon and some of the camera angles and just some of the action taking place. Clearly the nods to the original trilogy. We were getting through Billy D and the fleet arrival. And then obviously the much clear focus, laser focus on the relationship between the new trio. So, I mean, we're pretty glowing over it right now. Last night, if we would have done this cast, I think my tune would have been slightly different. So it is not a perfect movie, and even as big as a fan as I am of it, the first time I did see it is jarring. I know we said that a few times. I wish I was smarter to use different adjectives and whatnot, but it's neither here nor there. So, but seeing it the second time, I feel so good about this movie now. I really do. And I don't want it to sound like I needed to see it twice to justify the way I liked it. I really did enjoy it the first time. The second time, I was just able to relax. I wasn't on edge just because of my natural human anxiety. And it just allowed me to, kind of like Ray, just take some deep breaths and say, be with me. And I just watched it and just fucking let myself feel it, experience it again. And I think my biggest complaint still, and I'm going to blame this on fucking JJ because he lied to us. We never got the goddamn resolution to the lightsaber.
No, yeah, we didn't get the resolution to the lightsaber at all. But like, there's also, and like, this is why I mentioned very early when we started, like the cuts, because there's a couple of things that were teased that I don't think paid off. Like, I remember either JJ or Anthony Daniels, or maybe it was both of them, saying like, you've never seen C-3PO like this before.
Well,
and that's just not. Like,
yeah,
I didn't agree with it.
Yeah, I mean, they definitely gave him. He felt like he was back in Empire Strikes Back, where they gave him more of the comedic lines, or had him interacting to make people laugh. It was kind of funny how he's like, hey, I can't tell you this, that, and the other thing. And when he had his memory wiped, that was kind of silly.
Yeah,
he was clearly used probably more extensively than ever before. But yeah, it wasn't like he died or anything. There was no ultimate sacrifice. So
yeah, exactly. I mean, I think you described it the best way you could. There is like it was like Empire Strikes Back. C-3PO, and the way that Poe was treating him was
just
the way that
someone
Han
to yell at. It's just someone to fucking berate and yell at, and ultimately he typically helps you out. And this is the one time where C-3PO more or less had the R2 moment. I mean, you could argue that he agreed to have his mind blown out. And then, how about Babu, man? I love Babu.
Babu Frick was.
I fucking love him, dude.
Highlight. He's a highlight. Babu.
Like when he boots him back up, he's like, "Hi, I'm C-3PO, human cyborg relation." He goes, "Hi, I'm Babu Frick." It's like, fuck yes, dude.
Yeah, I know.
Because Poe was all pissed. Poe's like, "Man, you're gonna have to fix that," and Babu was just like, "Hey, buddy, welcome back."
Yeah, I like how when they're leaving that establishment too, like when they're on Kijimi and they run out. And somebody says Babu Frick, and then C-3PO is like, Babu Frick, he's one of my oldest friends.
Yeah. I think C-3PO was probably at his comedic best in this one, if anything else. I mean, they gave him some good lines.
Yeah, I can see why Daniels was so hyped for this movie, and he was like really, drumming it up, because he did. Like, he played a very important, and he played a more centralized role than you would usually see 3PO in.
Oh, yeah.
So
he was holding the guns. He's like, "Oh, my first ever laser battle."
Yeah. I mean, it was just like, I guess that may be what they're referring to, is like, this is the first time you've ever seen 3PO in a way where he isn't accustomed. He's
not conditioned to be a pussy. Like, he's not like, "Oh, I'm scared." I mean, he wasn't sitting there. He's just like, if this is your people's daily lives, you're fucked up, because this is like pure chaos. I mean, there is a moment when he literally looks at everyone like, "What the fuck's wrong with you people?"
Yeah, and I mean, now that you mentioned that, like, maybe, that is JJ essentially, I don't want to say poking fun at himself for what he was doing in the movie, but like, that was a very, it was a very self-aware moment for the movie, because the whole, like, I feel like JJ knows in that moment the crowd is like, this is chaos. Like, everybody who's seen it for the first time feels like we felt. They're like, oh my God, things are happening so fast, it's so chaotic. And then C-3PO essentially speaks for the crowd and says, like, is this what it's like all the time?
Yeah.
Like,
I didn't see it that way, but that's a very interesting take, no doubt. I mean, that's why you're the smart one. I mean, we've established that. I think something else that we kind of talked about this that bummed me out a little bit, but I have come to grips with it, and it does make sense narratively for the way this film was resolved, and ultimately the 9 films. But making Rey essentially a Force god by giving her Palpatine royalty, because we've argued in the past Palpatine could be the strongest Force user in this whole Skywalker saga.
Yeah.
So there you go. I mean, it mirrors again the original. You had the evil grandfather the evil father with the son coming through, and now we have the evil grandfather with a granddaughter coming through.
Yeah,
it just felt a little wonky to me. It's like, hey, yeah, you're a Palpatine. It's like, okay. It
did, and this is where I start to get into, like, I'll start to mention my thoughts on this whole idea that I have that what JJ essentially did with Tross was he tried to fit as much of his version of Episode 8.
Oh, for damn sure.
Into this movie.
For damn sure.
And this is a spot specifically with, like, the granddaughter thing that would have probably been explored a little bit more, because, we have no idea who these characters are. Like, it's fine that they left them, like, your parents were nobodies, but they weren't. It's Palpatine's son.
Right.
Like,
who chose to, like, just not be associated with him. And that,
Yeah.
that was like that was the way they honored Ryan's take on it. They're like, yeah, they chose to be nobodies, even though they were a fucking Sidious, or Sidious's fucking offspring.
Yeah, and look, I mean, maybe people who aren't as into like the nitty gritty of the lore as Matt and I are would be able to just shake that off and say,
and
like,
that's what
okay.
it is, right, Nick? It's not so much that they made her a Palpatine and Palpatine had a kid. It's like, all right, well, paint us a little more of a picture of that.
Yeah, it's like we're supposed to believe that he's like, he walks up to somebody, he's like, hi, I'm Sheev Palpatine, this is my son Steve Palpatine,
right,
and then he just walks away. And it's like,
fucking Sheev and Steve, I love it, dude.
I mean,
we need a new series. That's a new Disney Plus series, the fucking
Yeah.
Sheev and Steve show. It's like a buddy cop show.
I mean, that is basically how they played it
Sheev
off. They
and
were just
Steve.
like he was just
No,
like,
100%. But in the end, it's like, hey, whatever. They needed to get it to this point. They needed to get her to where she could be validated as this insane force power user, which I think was just showcased brilliant in this film. I mean, my God.
yeah.
I mean, Rey is a fucking force goddess.
Yeah, I mean, she is an unbridled.
And so is Ben.
power,
For all you know, let's for those of you that get butthurt over powerful women in Star Wars. I mean, shit, they showed that they truly were this dyad thing that Ben told her about. They were essentially two halves of the same mega force being.
Yeah, and if you think about it, with the now newly established canon, technically, Ben. I mean, it depends on what you consider a father. Like, and I'm not talking about like a father who raises you. I'm talking about like a biological father. So like, we now know in canon that Palpatine is essentially Anakin Skywalker's dad. Like, he created him through the Force. So I mean, in a way, these two characters, with Ben Solo being the grandfather of Anakin Skywalker, whose father was Palpatine, and then you have the granddaughter of Palpatine. Like, these two characters are semi like related in a way, and like this dyad between these two characters is you can buy it. And again, I think that the whole concept of this dyad is something that would have probably been explored further if JJ had more time. Like,
oh yeah,
but yeah. It's
but
just like
that.
that.
It still works, and like I said, second screening, it feels even more natural. Is what I've been trying to say, and I know it's always going to come off as like I'm excusing things. That's not it. I really felt a whole new sense of appreciation for how the movie kind of plays out, even with its issues here and there. And there are a ton of plot conveniences. I'm not sitting here glossing over and saying this movie's perfect. It's not. I mean, there's a lot of like, hey, we just need these people over here, so bing, bang, boom, there's a thingamajig. Wazam! And they're there.
Yeah.
It's like, okay. It's like, all right, well, there we go. I mean, just... the intern and I, as soon as the crawl went through, we're like, okay, well, we're getting right fucking to it. Shit. I mean, the crawl just fast forward the whole Palpatine thing, and then before you know it, within 5 minutes, you got Kylo talking to him.
Yeah, I mean, I did not that I ever expect that we would have that moment between Kylo and Palpatine within the first 10 minutes. Of
Even the leaks didn't get that. Right. And speaking of the leaks, I forgot I wanted to do a little blurb on that. I have to 100% say that doing the leaks killed this movie in terms of any of the surprises from top to bottom for me. It was one of the worst experiences of my life. It's probably another reason why my second screening was better, because I didn't have that burden weighing on my soul of, man, you really fucked this up for yourself, didn't you? You really fucked this up. You and your little Star Wars time bullshit that no one really cares about anyways, and you still fucking read those leaks that turned out to be about 85% fucking true. So people don't do leaks. It's not worth it. It is not worth it.
Yeah, I mean, this, like I said before, we're not doing leaks for any more Star Wars content that comes out. So don't expect it from the Star Wars time show.
Get the fuck out of here with that shit. You guys are psychos that want leaks like that. Man, I don't know how you could, because I was watching it through the intern. Yeah. And seeing his reactions to the moments I knew were coming, it was killing me. It was killing me inside. I'm like, fuck. I knew it. I knew this would happen. But anyways, back onto it. I don't know, I mean, do you have we just been kind of general spitballing now. We do have a list of kind of moments that I've punched up, and I mean, you're free to add to it, Nick, but just moments that kind of stood out to me. They were fun, or was like, ooh, that was interesting, or that was emotional. So is there anything else you have to kind of lay down on your initial screening of The Rise of Skywalker?
Yeah, so I really feel like for we have communicated this, like for casual fans, like you mentioned your mom, like I feel like they would love it because they don't care nearly as much about like, the more in-depth explanations
the
behind
nerdy
a lot
stuff,
of things that happen.
like the nuts and bolts.
Yeah. And for us, I feel like we almost go into a Star Wars movie at like a disadvantage because we are looking for things like that. It's not to, I'm not trying to say that like we can never be pleased by a Star Wars film, but like we will always exit a Star Wars film wanting more.
And that's why, honestly, I think TFA at this point in time is my tops of this trilogy, because I distinctly remember going in with lower expectations because I still had shell shock from the prequels all those years later. But I also remember coming out going like, that was damn near perfect. That's exactly what I needed to see for this new trilogy, and to kind of reignite my fandom again. Because I like Luke did on Acto, I essentially stepped away from Star Wars as he did from The Force. For all those years, I mean, the only thing I would dabble in were the Clone Wars. Anything else, I couldn't bring myself to watch the movies. So I guess I can say I relate to some of you that are having major issues with these new movies, but I still contend if you just want to talk about storytelling in general and just narratives, these new movies are better films than the prequels. It's not even close in my opinion.
Yeah, and I think that like what I want to do is like we'll eventually circle around to like our feelings on the trilogy as a whole and how we think it could have been made better. What do we think could have been improved? Like we'll get to that a little bit later. But like in terms of particular moments for me, like the moment and like maybe I don't know, maybe there's something with me about like friends showing up and like enforced to help people who were in dire need, but like when I had I had tears roll, like I could wipe them from my cheeks when like Poe is sitting there and they're on Exegol, shit is done. Like
he throws in the towel. He's like, we're fucked. He's like, I was wrong. We're done.
Yeah, he's like, this is it. And then you hear Lando over the intercom.
Yeah, he's a very on your left type of moment.
Yeah, and the whole thing, the whole fleet shows up. And this is the moment that got me in Endgame too, when Captain America and Thor were sitting there and they were fighting, and Iron Man, they were all fighting Thanos. When those portals opened up and everybody came through, I was a ball of tears. And it's the same thing that happened to me here with Tross. Like those types of moments always hit me hard. And it's like that turning point moment. It's the moment that because going into a film like this, the good guys are going to win. Like you can't help it. But when you get so caught up in the story, like you do with Star Wars films and with Marvel films, you forget. Like you have a cognitive dissonance where you're like, oh my gosh, like this could really like. I mean,
dude, that shit that Palpatine was doing with the lightning was pretty fucking impressive too.
Yeah.
I was like, holy shit.
I was like, maybe fucking maybe that's how this goes out and Palpatine wins. And then like they come in and you see everybody. You see Wedge and you see all of these ships that you've seen before. And then it just hit me and I was like, and that was it. I was like, that was the moment for me in this movie.
I could not find the Colossus, but man, that was a mess of ships, dude. That was a mess of ships. Yeah. I did see the Ghost a few times, but the Colossus, I was looking for it.
I mean, that moment to me was as close as I've gotten in the second two in TLJ and in Tross to how I was when Rey pulled the lightsaber in TFA. Like that was that moment for me in Tross. And it really, like, from that moment on, I was just like,
Yeah,
maybe
well,
this is the best Star Wars movie ever.
I'll kind of piggyback off of that with another moment that, especially the second time I saw it, really started to have those Rey force pull the saber for me, and it was what I'm calling the Jedi pep talk at the end, where Rey's essentially knocked out, Palpatine's fully regenerated, the dude is macked up. Let me essentially saying, I have every Sith within me at this point. I am the Sith. So he's pretty fucking supercharged, and she's laying there, and it's kind of a callback to an earlier scene where she's just saying, be with me, kind of meditating. Mm-hmm. And then they all come through, and you hear the voices of Obi-Wan, you hear Anakin, you hear Kanan, Ahsoka. Then you got some far out ones like Luminara and Adigalia and Ilis Kura. Yoda, obviously, Mace, and it had that inspiration because obviously they're playing the Force music. I think it might have been the Skywalker theme, and she crosses the blades. She's like, rah! And fucking melts Palpatine's face. I'm like, oh shit, I don't think I'm gonna be able to bring my 3.5-year-old to this after all. And she's like, rah! So I really the Jedi pep talk. Like if you hear what they're saying to her, it is kind of. It's motivational. It definitely strikes some of those emotional chords that I was looking for.
Yeah, and that brings in that pep talk brings in one of the moments that we've been talking about since TROS was announced. Like that was Hayden, Hayden's moment. Like he wasn't there in full body, full force ghost form, but
what did he say? He said, "Be the chosen one like me," or something like that.
Yeah, he's like, "Bring balance to the force like I did."
There, yeah.
Yeah, and it's not exactly what we wanted, but to hear that from Anakin Skywalker, like the entire catalyst to this series, I think was a very wise move by JJ. And I will say that the entire scene that surrounded this moment, like that arena where that
with all those Sith shadow figures.
I don't know what they were. I don't know if they were ghosts of long dead Sith or if they were Sith loyalists that had already gathered at Palpatine's side.
Right.
But the chanting every time that he said something, it felt like such an you could feel the oppressiveness that
dude, this was that all where Exegol in general was ancient Sith, it was KOTOR level Sith stuff, where it was the religion basically.
Yeah, I mean, I thought that was so well executed, and I mean that in itself makes this film just a beautiful thing to watch for Star Wars fans. It is just so powerful, that moment,
right?
When
kind of going back to the pep talk. Would you have liked to have seen some of the ghosts? I mean, obviously they didn't do that just to not have to pay the people more than just using their voices. But do you think it would have hit better if Anakin was actually there, or they're reaching down to say rise and kind of picking her up with the
That's exactly what I was gonna say. It's if there was one of them, if there was either to me it's got to be Anakin or Obi.
Yeah, I was thinking Anakin. This goes back to where early in the week I'm like, damn it, dude, I got another thing spoiled for me. And that some asshole took a picture of the fucking credits and his name is first.
Hayden, really?
Yeah, because of Anakin.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh fuck, man, now I ruined that too. So I really thought we were gonna get some Force Ghost stuff because I didn't. As soon as I saw that, I closed this little pop up on my Mac, and I didn't see the other list of fucking Jedi to put 2 and 2 together. But yeah, I was hoping he might have showed up.
Yeah, but I mean, the way that they did it, I thought it would have been cool to see her be pulled up, but the fact that she stood up on her own and was then empowered by the 1,000 generations of Jedi who came before her, as Luke said, I thought it was a wonderful moment. And the fact that she was using Leia's blade, I think meant a lot to me, and I think it meant more to her to use Leia's blade than it did to use Luke's.
I love that whole thing, and that is one thing, the leaks, I think, luckily I just forgot about, or that wasn't in the leaks, but I'm glad that whole... I loved just we knew the flashback was coming from the leaks, but I like that we got to see it. Obviously I think Leia's face looked a little wonky. I mean, it looked like we were watching fucking Battlefront 2, to be honest with you. But I like the moment. I mean, I like that it showed like how far Leia had trained. I mean, Luke essentially said on the last night of her training. I mean, she was beating his ass in sparring. And, Yoda always said that Leia should have been the one that needed to be trained, not Luke, because Luke was more like his dad, had that head to him. But I love the fact that, they tried their best to, I think, get to where they wanted to go, where Leia was a Jedi Master, finishing Rey's training. And we'll kind of get into another top moment through this, but as we were talking about, if Carrie was still here and kind of the things we've heard from Todd and whatever and Colin, there was a really good chance Leia probably would have been with Rey or shown up right in the nick of time during Rey and Kylo's duel, where he essentially was just beating her down with the Force, like Darth Vader style swings. She was taking the same type of heavy swings, but just wearing out. And then what happens? His fucking mom uses the last bit of her energy to bust through his nonsense. And, if Carrie was still here, I think she would actually showed up and he would have either have killed her and then realized like, oh man, or would have done the same thing, like a talk, and they would have all left all happy and this, that, and the other thing. But that moment, for what they had to work with, Nick, I think that's the best way they could have had Leia go out, with that last reach out to her son. It snapped him, allowed Rey to do her thing, which further woke him up and kind of shocked Rey in the same. And it honored Leia. Like, Rey realized when she killed her son, like, oh, fuck, what have I become now?
Yeah, I agree. I think that was the most fitting way to do it. And I think JJ did as much as he could with what he had of the Carrie footage.
Yeah.
And I think he used it to good effect.
Yeah.
I will say that the one thing that annoyed me about that scene is that he spoiled that whole moment for himself by showing her healing that snake. Like, I don't think you need to establish that power before she uses it, because you could argue that's half the reason they dropped Mando early this week to try to get people ready for that. And I even mentioned that in the recap and review. I'm like, this is possibly by design for all these mega force powers we've been hearing about that they're going to be on display. And my God, were they on display? Oh yeah, I mean, there was a ton of them.
Those force flash fights, fuck, those were awesome.
Those were really fucking cool. But that moment for me, like, it would have been elevated just a little bit more if you leave out the bullshit with the snake, because I don't think you need to establish that she can do that.
Yeah, I agree. You're right. It would have hit even more. But I was gonna say, from the moment she says Ben, all the way to the end of the Han exchange, the emotions are dialed in perfectly there. Like, yes. I mean, you feel something that entire time. I think it's almost like a 3 to 5 minute sequence. Yeah. From the moment Leia says Ben till Ben has the full redemption moment. I loved, just the casual thing where Harrison's like, I know.
Yeah, I mean,
he didn't make Ben say, "I'm sorry, Dad," and he throws the saber. So
yeah, I don't know if it's just that I didn't read that far in the leaks, or if it wasn't in the leaks, or if I had forgotten. But like, I didn't know that Harrison was in this movie. Like, I assumed.
No, I knew that. That's why we were having that one talk where Richard E. Grant's like, I can't believe this one character had this moment. I was like, oh, he's talking about the fucking Han moment, and. Yeah, I thought you were just playing around, and that's why I was like, hey, anyone who wants to know or anyone that wants to see what I'm guessing, hit me up. So, of course, Greg hit me up, and I was like, it's Han. He's like, you were right.
Yeah, no, dude, because I was sitting there, and I was trying to think, too. I'm like, am I missing something when you were going through that with me? And I was like, man, I just don't know. So when he turned around and he was there, that hit me in a way where I was like, wow. Like, yeah. I don't know how it happened. And I don't know if this is something if that was one of the new mega force powers where like Kylo can essentially commune with his father's spirit, even though his father wasn't a Force user.
He's just like I like how they did it. I mean, they clearly delineated he's not a Force ghost. It was just like any other movie where a character has a vision. I mean, he was just seeing what was in his head, and because it's film and we're stupid people, they needed to show us Han there.
Yeah, and the fact that the conversation, the things that Ben said in that moment were the same things that he said in TFA, I thought were really, really poignant. I mean,
it showed that he came full circle, and at the root of it all, the thing that got him to turn were his parents. It started with his mom, and then his dad sealed the deal right there.
Yeah, and I mean, that was another moment where I got teary-eyed, and that, like, you could say whatever you want. Like, some people wanted Ben Demption, some people didn't want it, but I feel like you needed to have that moment.
Oh, it was coming all along. Come on, dude. I mean, that's one thing we can pat ourselves on the back. We called it. I mean, I called it 100%. Let's get right into it. I mean, Ben's death. I mean, he sacrificed himself for Rey, as I said he would. It happened in a way I didn't expect. I mean, I guess you could argue no, because, I mean, Rey was dead. And he essentially had to give all of his Force energy to her to bring her back, where she was just healing wounds.
Yeah, he was healing death. He literally, he did what Palpatine always wanted to be able to do. Like, he saved somebody else from death. Like, think about that moment back in fucking episode 3.
But not like a Sith. He didn't, like, pass his soul. He allowed Rey to return.
Yeah,
he just essentially, he fucking supercharger. He was the jump start.
Yeah,
but he used his life force just like Luke did. I mean, it is essentially the same type of death. He exerted so much Force energy that it was too much.
Yeah, and I thought it was a beautiful moment. I don't think, I mean, if we're gonna bring up the leaks made it seem like there was some sort of possession happening there and all this. I don't think that's what it was. Like, I think she was just dead. Like, she was dead as fuck. She didn't blink. I was like, Jesus Christ, Daisy Ridley, what'd you do? Tape your fucking eyes shut open, wide open? Because she doesn't blink for 4 minutes or so. Yeah, I mean, so that was a spot where the leaks were off, and I'm glad that they didn't do that. I'm glad that they didn't do this whole possession thing. I really enjoyed how the whole climax played out between those three, Palpy, the last Skywalker, and then Rey. I mean, the entire climax of this film, like I said, how about just Rey in general, dude? How about that? I mean, dude, I thought she was fantastic. I mean, Daisy just had her on edge the entire film. Like, to me, the way she was portrayed in this movie, that's how Anakin should have been portrayed. Where, there's the hints of darkness. Oh, there's another hint of dark. There it is. There's the power. Okay, people fucking with her. All right. So I kind of like how edgy Rey was in this, and obviously Daisy just fucking smoked the emotional moments. I mean, when she had that talk with Ben after she stabbed him, she's like, I wanted to take Ben's hand. Yeah. It's like, damn, man, that was great. But she was just excellent, dude. I mean, physically, emotionally, loved her. The three that I called out specifically in my review, because again, like the acting is top notch in this film. Like, it sings. And the three that I call out in particular are Daisy, Oscar, and Ian. And I have to say, Ian was brought to this earth, born as a human being to play Palpatine. 100%. That they are one and the same. I mean, they are the same person. He is just so damn good at playing the most evil and badass Sith ever. Yeah, from the moment that I saw him, there was like a second in my head, like when it first came around, I was like, does he still have it? Like, it's been such a long time. But like, when he flips that Palpatine switch, he is that person. Like, I'll tell you what, dude, I think Palpatine looks better half dead than fully rejuvenated. He gets all his wrinkles back and shit. I know, it was weird, right? I love the completely white eyes, like the no color in the eyes. The way that he was, like, the way that they portrayed him was perfect. And like, does it annoy me as a psycho Star Wars fan that we didn't get some sort of like how did he live moment, like how is he still alive?
Well,
kind of, but it's not.
I agree.
Beyond...
Yeah, I mean, lore hounds, of course, I'd like the details, but more or less when Ben walks down there, you see these fucking huge tanks of probably Bacta and whatever, and he's got all these technicians working on it, and he's essentially dangling from this mechanical arm. I mean, I don't even know if he had fucking legs or anything, and his fingers were all eroded. So, it's a perfect line, a perfect throwback to the prequel. The prequel, all you tell me is the best. Some consider the dark side a pathway to ability some consider unnatural, right? I mean, there you go. That's all you need to know, honestly.
And I mean, they showed the depths of what that machinery was doing, because like when he touches them, like his fingers break off and then they grow back. So like that he's just constantly in a state of like decay and then reformation. I also thought it was cool that they showed Snoke cut in half in that fucking tank. Like there was like
there's a bunch of Snokes. So I mean, Snoke truly was just he was a puppet.
Yeah, he was just like a bunch of different versions that Palpatine had been throwing out in the galaxy, I guess, to see when it would catch. I mean, I loved that whole thing around it, like Ian Palpatine, the storyline, like everything around Palpatine. I truly fucking just loved. It was so well done.
Yeah.
And then, Oscar, I think.
I was gonna say, Poe, dude, was just fantastic. I mean, I think it was kind of cool. He's Han Solo at this point. I mean, he's a fucking reformed spice runner.
Yeah. I mean, he basically takes up the mantle of Han, even so much as he was flying the Falcon for the beginning of the movie, and
that was great. I mean, I love that action sequence where this new concept of light speed jumping, because obviously, there's one thing they picked up from TLJ, right? Now you can follow people through hyperspace. But I loved how JJ utilized that, and motherfuckers were like jumping right into cities, right into other planets. So that was a pretty fucking thrilling opening to that. I mean, I just right how it opens with Kylo fucking owning people.
Yeah.
I mean, slicing people in half. I'm like, yes, that's kind of like that Darth Vader Rogue One stuff, but even more visceral.
Yeah, it was fucking fantastic. I mean, the light skipping, that was great. And again, like, if I want to be like a complete nerd, like that's again like a foreshadowing to what that whole beginning of the movie, because that again happens within the first 5 minutes. Like that's JJ saying like, get ready, because we're gonna be light skipping the fuck out of all these plot points that we need to hit before we can get into our our climax.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. I don't know. I mean, just like as we sit here and talk about more and more, like I'm more pleased with what I saw, and I hope other fans experience that too, because there's a lot of negativity surrounding this movie. Naturally, that's just how Star Wars is these days. But I think if you see it again, like the first time you saw it, and you're like, yeah, there's a lot. See it again. I'm telling you, sit down, talk to another Star Wars buddy, because I'm having a damn good time just reminiscing about what I've seen, what I liked, even what I didn't like. So continuing on, I kind of dug Zori. I mean, I said Zori and Babu. We already talked about Babu, but I thought Zori worked. She was fun. Kind of gave Poe a little more backstory. And I love that moment at the end where he gives her the, like, you want to fuck wink.
Yeah, like literally, like he tilts his head over, like, "Hey, you want to go on the ship?" No.
Yeah. So she wasn't just throwaway. I mean, she had that moment where she comes in and kind of blows up that fucking gun. So I thought she was a cool addition to the cast as a background character. Yeah,
they used her to good effect, and I mean, that was one of. I mean, like if you want to look at Zori. She was a plot device. She was one of the plot conveniences that was in this movie, but she was used far past that as well. Like, she was the one who was able to hook him up with Babu Frick. She was the one who gave him the metal medallion to get on the ship. But then that's not all that she does. Like, she comes back. She's there for the resistance, and she's there in the end. And she enhances the character of Poe a lot, I think.
Another new one who I actually found to be awesome, and I loved how this character arc played out. But Legion General Pride, man, I thought Richard Grant was fantastic.
He did. He killed it, and
because he was like that human slug servant to the Emperor all along. You know, I mean,
yeah.
I know. Did you get the line where he's like, just as I served you in the Empire? I mean, I don't know if because remember he hinted like maybe people will know but I still don't see the connection. Either way, he played that type of just non-force powered superstar character perfectly.
Yeah, and I mean he kind of hinted towards the fact that they built his character similar to Grand Moff Tarkin, and I could see shades of Tarkin in there.
Exactly. He's just as heartless. And I mean, I love how he just blows away fucking Hux. That was fantastic.
Yeah. He's like, we found our mole. Boom. And then he's just
again a perfect end for Hux, in my opinion. I loved it.
Yeah, and to know that he has been at working with the Emperor the whole time kind of makes sense. It lends credence to the fact that essentially the First Order was nothing but a pawn of the Empire the whole time, or the Final Order, a pawn.
Well,
of
yeah,
the
I mean,
Final
hey,
Order the whole
first,
time.
if you got a first, you got to have a final, and that's what his plan. I mean, but all along, he had his Empire. He had Operation Cinder to start setting up the First Order. The First Order hit the mark he needed, and then it became the Final Order. So I just really like Pride, and I loved his death. I mean, it was a violent death. I mean, you could actually see him get exploded out of that fucking out of the bridge.
When I saw that, I physically, I was like, oh man, like
right, because you didn't get to see Tarkin really get to watch him explode. You got to see that guy explode.
Yeah, like he like you see his back like almost break, like the way that they filmed it, the way they shot it. Like I mean I do enjoy it, and I mean like Matt, like this is so weird because like I feel like people could, and I don't know, Matt, you may be able to tell me, I feel like people could read my review and think that I didn't like this film, but clearly I'm a huge fan of it. I mean, I know.
I mean, it's just like I said, I can't wait to see how you feel after number 2, because if we talked last night, I think I would be much more down than I am now. Not in a negative way, just kind of like, man, that pace was like, really enjoyed it, but it was just kind of shoveling shit down our face for the first 40, 50 minutes. But that second screening really put things into perspective, and as I said, gave me a new level of clarity. So I don't know. I didn't find your review to be that you hated it. I was sitting there nodding along with it. Like, these are valid points, but it doesn't make it a bad movie. You know what I mean? So
yeah, and like that's kind of the way that I felt about it. Like, that's the way that I felt about it initially coming out. I was like, I enjoyed this movie, and I know that I like this movie, but I also know that there are legitimate criticisms that can be made about it. And
like, if you just want to talk like straight up storytelling or filmmaking, yes, you could pick some holes in this big time. But hey, I'm not here to do that. I liked it. I'm not going to shit on it just to shit on it. I'm not going to fall into the trap of, hey, if you hate on something these days, you're going to get more clicks, whatever. Fuck it, who cares?
Yeah.
So something that I predicted actually played out without having to read the leaks, and that was the demise of the Knights of Ren at the hands of Mr. Ben Solo. I remember that's something I said I would like to see.
Yeah.
And I got it, and I loved the moment. I loved how they did it. They were setting up the fact that Rey and Kylo could now interact through the Force across time and space, essentially.
Yeah.
They do that fucking lightsaber pass. And did you see? I mean, I'm pointing it out now, so look for it in your second viewing here. But when he gets that lightsaber, he pauses for a second and just kind of does a move like, all right, guys, this is how it's going to fucking go down. Like, we used to be boys, but now you're going to fucking die.
Yeah.
It's just like a perfect, like a, so Yeah, the Knights of Ren ultimately were kind of useless. We didn't really get to see them do any sort of action outside of their little melee with Ben, but
Yeah.
I was glad that he was the one that took them all out.
I will say it felt like when I got out of it, I could feel that JJ wanted to use them more. Because he puts them in key places. Like,
yeah, I feel like he probably cut the scene where they actually are the ones that arrest Chewbacca. Because I remember that from the leaks where they're the ones that, like, Chewbacca and them kind of have a little fight, but they overpower him and arrest him. And I guarantee that's something that ended up on the cutting room floor.
Yeah. And, like, I feel like he established those characters, and I know he wanted to use them because, like, they follow him to Kijimi. They kind of show up in the hallway in Kijimi.
How about their
they're
ship,
right
dude? With
That
its
was
exhaust in space.
Yeah.
I love that.
It's
I
like a
fucking
big
love
ass,
that.
like 18-wheeler that's just spilling smoke behind.
Like, so, I mean, it really does harken to their motorcycle gang mentality in kind of construct. I thought that was a fucking fantastic touch.
Yeah.
Other great touches. I got to give Eunice credit for the way he handled Chewie's learning of Leia's death, because the way he just physically reacts to that and then the cry outs, I was just like, Christ, if you think about what Chewie is experiencing in that moment, all his friends are now gone.
Yeah. Like
outside of Lando, I mean, his closest friends are gone. Han, Luke, and Leia are now dead.
Yeah, I mean, that was another one that tugged
and like
on
you said,
my
with the medal was
heartstrings.
just a cherry on top for all of that too. It was like Chewie is the last of the core that made it out.
Yeah, and we, I don't know if I could have handled Chewie dying in this movie, but the way that he was portrayed in this film by Eunice, the way that they wrote those parts for him, I think were excellent. I mean, the way that he was fucking, like, one moment that I think that like really kind of bypassed my mind until just now when we're talking about Chewie was the moment right after the speeder chase on Pisana, where they're all just sitting there and it's a giant gunfight and they're all just fucking shooting these like the troopers out of the air. I love that, and that was another highlight for Chewie. And I think that, like, the way that Eunice portrayed him, the way that they wrote those key moments, those big key moments for him, were fantastic. And it goes to show you that, like, that Chewie is a character that will forever be associated with, I mean, basically with all of the trilogies now. Like, he made it through all of them, and we may see him again in the future. I just, like, the reverence that they showed him was special in this movie.
Yeah, it was good. It was good stuff. Another new character. I actually quite enjoyed Jana as well. I thought she was cool. I mean, she brought her own. I loved her one moment on the wing of the Star Destroyer where she tosses that grenade and blows up some fucking useless Sith troopers.
Yeah,
which they're just as useless as any other flavor of stormtrooper at this point.
Pretty much.
Sith troopers didn't do dick shit, man. they didn't do dick shit.
They were super hyped, and they were just like, yeah, like you said,
they provided great fodder for Rey, though. My God, dude, how about when she starts cutting them down and she's blocking laser bolts with her hands?
Yeah, I know, that was great. Like, that's
shit Darth Vader shit. Like, yeah. And he even let the bolts hit his hand. She's just like fucking throwing them out of the way.
Yeah, like, that's some stuff that I was like, oh, they went like full Jedi Fallen Order here, because I've been playing the game a lot, and I was like, oh, she's basically like slowing these bolts down and just throwing them back.
Oh yeah, like, I mean, that was another. She got very violent, like a Rogue One Vader. I mean, just cutting people down, throwing bolts at people. You had the fucking ship grab, tug of war between those two, and then her lightnings. Like, I loved that JJ's like, you know what, fuck it, man, let's dial the Force up to 1,000, and he did it for Rey and Ben. I mean, they were just doing some insane shit.
Yeah, and I mean, you actually had the call out of, right before, I think it was the last cast we did. You were like, we may get to see like a Darth Nihilus Force drain in this movie, and you were dead on, because that's exactly what fucking Palpatine did. Like, another new Force power that was thrown in that really kind of dialed this up to 11.
What did you think of that? very focused moment between Lando and Janna at the end. I mean, obviously, coming from the leaks, it was hinted that she is his daughter, and it felt like they're almost setting up a potential spin-off with those two. Like, hey, he's just like all of a sudden like, oh, sure, I don't know you, I just met you, but yeah, let's go figure out where you came from.
Yeah, I mean, if that's something that happens in like a Disney Plus television series, cool. I'm all down for it.
Because I was a little worried about what Billy would do, but he was fucking perfect, man. He completely recaptured Baron Landonis Balthazar III.
Yeah, I mean, he killed it, dude. And
it was money.
It's funny because I was talking to my friend a lot about the movie, and he was like, man, he was like, do you feel like this was like a finality? Did you feel finality here? And I was like, there's a lot of stuff that could continue. Like, I feel like there is a bit of finality.
The door is open. It's just, are they going to do it? Are they too pussy? Do they feel like they've burnt people out on Star Wars? Is the negative critical reaction to this film going to be enough to have them reconsider making any more films at all? I mean, who knows? I mean, we don't even know what the box office could be.
I mean, the box office, they said for Thursday alone was $44 million, which was the third highest opening for a preview night of all time. Okay. So the first is Endgame, second's Force Awakens, and then now 3 is Tross. So
it's trending okay.
Yeah, it's basically they're saying 200 million is likely what it'll do in the first.
But I mean, the bad critical reviews will affect it, because there are still some fucking lemmings out there that will be like, oh fuck, if this schmo says it's no good, then it's clearly no good. I have no brain of my own, so fuck it.
Yeah, and so I mean, I think that they did leave the door open, and we'll kind of.
And all the stars are like, I'd never do this again, blah, blah. I was like, okay, well, let's see. If you need some fucking money or if it's a good script, why not? I mean, come on. You guys were so great in it. I mean, we did finally get the glimpse of the three together, and it worked really well. I mean, I loved the Finn and Poe moments. I loved the Finn, Poe, and Rey. I loved Poe and Rey, man. I told you. They had their relationship. It's very kind of the flirty, like, hey, I'm tough, you're tough. I mean, we see that Rey ended up wanting to get with Ben in the end, whatever. But I could tell those two, there's something between Rey and Poe this past year and a half in between TLJ and Tross. At least for me, that's what I'm going with. But speaking of Finn, this is kind of the last moment and maybe our last point on Tross. But I think Nick has some things to say, just kind of sum up the new trilogy. But when we got, I mean, let's be real. This movie confirms that Finn is Force sensitive. There's multiple moments where you could argue they're making that point, but there is one moment in particular where it's crystal clear, and that's when Rey goes down and dies essentially, and Finn feels it on the Falcon. And I said it to Nick before we went live. Finn, to me, in this movie was essentially doing what Leia was starting to do at the end of Empire and Return of the Jedi, where she could hear Luke calling out to her with no training and no knowledge of her even being a Skywalker. And she could also sense that Luke was not blown up on Death Star 2. And that's exactly how I feel Finn was portrayed in this movie.
Yeah. I mean, he is definitely. It's unquestionable that he is Force sensitive now,
and I think that's what he wanted to tell Rey, but they never got to that conversation.
Yeah, and that's I like that they did it too, because it's always, like you mentioned, it had always been talked about even amongst just the fans that broke First Order conditioning. There was no reason that he should have been able to do that. Like he was. Like suspiciously decent with a lightsaber, but I understand why they give him a bit of affinity, because it enhances his character a little bit. I don't think he needed it. I don't think.
Well, you could also, he didn't need it, but you could tell with Janna when he gave her his call sign, she's like, "Oh my God, it's you!" So he already is a legend himself, and I don't know if he was the motivation for them to run away from the Order, but like I said, I did like Janna. I thought she played a key role for stuff like that, to show like, hey, yeah, Finn is this fucking legend type of character at this point.
Yeah.
So I mean, dude, that's really all I had to say in terms of top moments. I know we've been discussing like and kind of lamenting that when it comes down to it, does this trilogy succeed on what it set out to do back in 2012? I can't even believe it's been that long since this was announced. I mean, really, even for the Star Wars time show, I mean, our roots began essentially with the arrival of the Force Awakens, and now here we are. This trilogy has been cast; it's out. The story has been told, and I can tell you, after seeing the final film, am I satisfied? Yes. Am I as satisfied as I think I could have been based on what was explained to us when this big project started? Absolutely not. But there's a lot of factors that played into it. Yeah. And a huge one, an unavoidable one that really I think fucked up a ton of plans, was Carrie's death. But I think the biggest issue, I think this is where you're going to go, was the fact that there was not a cohesive vision from the start for the trilogy. There should have been a writing team that was decided upon from the get-go that wrote the treatments for 7, 8, and 9. Then you could get cute with bringing in different directors, because guess what? That's how the original trilogy was made, and that is the best trilogy at this point in time, and it will always be that way. The prequels, say what you will, they were wonky because George took full control again, and Star Wars, the first movie, that was George full control. It's a great movie because it's Star Wars and it gave us this monster that we love. But in terms of the movie, it's the wonkiest of the original trilogy.
Yeah.
So the fact that they thought they could get away with bringing in 3 different creatives with 3 different visions and tell a cohesive story that was meant to mimic the original trilogy with 3 new leads and 1 big bad, it was foolish, and it did ultimately harm this trilogy. And as Nick kind of wrote in his think piece this week, it ultimately has cast a shadow now over future Star Wars and Disney Star Wars in general, and that's a bummer because I do think TROS does some great things, and as Nick has said, it's trying to tell JJ's whole vision for the trilogy, which probably would have been a fantastic vision.
Yeah. So, I mean, overall for me, I think that The Force Awakens, and this may be, like you mentioned, because just pure emotion of Star Wars being back in the theaters, the fact that a new trilogy was launching, I think The Force Awakens was the perfect setup for this whole trilogy. And I think when TLJ came out, Andrew Reiner, and you brought this up to me when we were discussing TLJ at the release 2 years ago. Andrew Reiner for Game Informer, he's not there anymore, wrote that J.J. Abrams set the table with TFA for the trilogy, and then Rian Johnson flipped the table over. And he wasn't putting it in a negative way. He said, he was basically saying Johnson bucked convention and did something that we've never really seen in Star Wars before. And he was very complimentary.
And I'm not blaming Ryan. I mean, no. Ryan got hired to do what he does, write movies and direct them.
Yeah. I think that there are 2 ways that this trilogy as an entire set of films could have been better. One way is you just had, like you mentioned, one way, I'll say 3. One way would have just been to let JJ have the whole thing.
Of course. Write and direct the whole damn thing.
Yeah. Because the first 45 minutes to an hour of that movie, you could have made that an entire 2 hour and 20 minute long movie by itself. And then you have the back half of TROS. You give it time to breathe, and then you add exposition.
You end episode 8 with Rey finding out she's a Palpatine, and then you come back. Kylo's still bad. Rey's getting darker, and then here we go.
Yeah, they still need to find the second Wayfinder. Like, there's time, and what that would allow you to do. And one thing that I think is a weakness of this of TROS is that there's no exposition.
Right.
Like, if you look at the prequel trilogy, and you say that the weakness is all exposition, the weakness of this movie is that there's no exposition.
Exactly.
Like there's not time for it.
You got that right.
Yeah, so if you would have allowed JJ to own the whole thing, you would have had a much cleaner series, and I think that Rise, that Tross, is the best Star Wars movie ever made.
Oh,
bar
100%,
none.
100%.
Like the way that movie ended, and the way that movie kind of came into its own, was perfect.
Speaking of the ending, should Ben have been there?
Oh, Force Ghost, 100%,
Yeah.
100%.
I think they were setting it more up, and it makes sense in this light that in the end, Rey ultimately looked at Leia and Luke as her mentor parents, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
And that's why she took their surrogate or their surname. So, but it would have been nice to see him pop up with mom and uncle.
I also think that, like, in a way, with that whole scene at the end where she tells that random person, like, Rey Skywalker, some people will shit on it and say that that's just JJ shitting on Ryan, but I spin it a different way and say that, like, it's kind of acknowledging what Ryan was trying to do in 8 by saying that it doesn't matter what your legacy is. You choose your legacy, right. And
she doesn't want to be a Palpatine. Palpatine's a soiled name in the galaxy. I mean, she is a Skywalker. It's no different than an adopted kid taking on his adopted parents' name.
Yeah. So
anyway, sorry, I had to go ahead back to your...
No, yeah. So I think that would have been the best thing to do, is to have JJ own the whole thing. Number 2, I think that, as counterintuitive as this may seem, especially for me as somebody who was on the fence about TLJ, I think if you let Ryan have 9, you could have more seamlessly picked up from where 8 left off, because it's hard to get past the fact that JJ essentially wanted to pick up. He basically just said, I'm going to pick up where TFA left off. I'll use the minimum amount of things.
Right.
That I need
they're
to from
slightly more advanced. I mean, Rey is way more advanced in the Force. Finn is, he knows who he is now, what he wants. Poe is a little bit more of a leader.
Yeah. Like, he used what he needed to, and then he basically said, I'm telling my story where I left off now. Thank you for the middle movie. I don't really need it that much. But if you let Ryan own 9, I think, 1, the film would have been just as good, and I think the seamless, you wouldn't have had that, like, really awkward opening. Like, you wouldn't have had that 45 minutes where it's like boom, 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 boom. Here's everything we need to establish. All right, now let's go.
It is. I contend it gets better with time in another viewing, but I'm not going to bullshit you. When you see it for the first time, it is, you're opening your mouth and JJ's just sitting there with Star Wars going.
Yeah. And then, like, yeah, so, like, I feel like if you give it to Ryan brings it home just as well, and I think he does it in a way that better incorporates all 3 films.
Yeah, I doubt we get Palpatine back if Ryan did
I don't
it,
think
though.
so. Yeah, I don't think so. And then my third one is kind of links to that point that you just mentioned, is I don't think that this... It's going to be difficult to say this because of the fact that I really enjoy how this movie ends, and I really think it does a really fantastic job.
It gives finality. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, but I don't think that you need to treat this episode 9 as what they marketed it to be. Like, I don't think that you need this movie to be the end of 40 years of storytelling, because if you, like, in my opinion, ROTJ is a finality in itself, and in episode 3 and ROTS, as you know, as questionable as the decisions were to treat Anakin the way that it did, that is a finality that leads into the original trilogy pretty well. So in my opinion, saying that 9, was needed to wrap up 40 years of storytelling wasn't necessary. Like, I feel like you could have used 9 as the simple end of the sequel trilogy, and then you take the burden of having to jam so much in away, and then you allow for more open time.
Dude, in the end, it comes down to the fucking idiots running the show, and I'm not even saying Kathleen. I'm talking about the money guy.
Yeah.
Because in the end, as much as everyone wants to blame Kathleen Kennedy, she reports to someone else that controls everything. I mean, the guy said as much when the Mando came out. I was like, yeah, I've seen it 3 times already because I watch it once, and then I give them my notes. And right there, I knew, you know what? Bob Iger is a fucking asshole.
Yeah, like
he's the one that's fucked a lot of this shit up.
Yeah, and you know, it was ambitious, and like that's something that I put in my review is that I don't think that JJ and Chris Terrio were trying to fit as much fan service in as they could. That's the opposite of what they were trying to do. They were trying to fulfill the promise of this movie, wrapping up 40 years of storytelling, and that's an almost impossible feat to do, but they did it beautifully.
Yeah, I agree. I think so.
Like the only other thing that I think could have benefited this movie was an extra 45 minutes to an hour. Like you give.
Oh, dude!
Like,
I mean, we aired our grievances on that hardcore, and it played out exactly as I knew it would. Like, yeah, I was entertained, but I'll tell you what, it would have been a lot better with another, 35 minutes. Yeah,
exactly. Like, there is no reason that this movie shouldn't have been Endgame length. Like this is if you're being sincere about this, Disney, and this is the end all be all of what we will ever see connected to these characters in Star Wars, then putting a 2 hour and 26 minute runtime on that movie is a travesty. And if you give JJ, I don't want to, you can't give him unlimited time. You can't say make a 4 hour long movie, but if you say you can max out at 3:10 like Endgame, then
3 hours would have been perfect, man.
Yeah,
I mean, I really think that thing would have. The opening would have flowed better because to me, now that I'm thinking about it more, what suffers the most to me is just the Palpatine storyline and how the good guys react to it, because it's all kind of like hunky-dory, like, oh, golly gee williker, shucks, he's back. How'd that happen? Leia's like, I know, can you believe this? It's like, what the fuck? I mean, that's very, but they had to do it. I mean, they had to just skip all that exposition to just get right to it.
Yeah,
so.
And like that's like with no exposition, that's a 2 hour and 26 minute long movie. That's what we got. But like, yeah, if you give it 35, 40, it sings the whole way through, because then you can let those moments breathe. Like,
I wonder if they'll become release the extended cut movement like there's been for this fucking Snyder cut movement for years on Justice League.
I mean, I don't know. I would like to see the 15 minutes that he cut, because like, I'm trying to
from the
figure
originally reported runtime.
Yeah. Because like I'm sitting here in my head and I'm thinking like the 15 minutes had to come out of the first 45 of the movie.
Oh yeah,
like,
because those are the wonkiest of moments. I mean, I'm not saying busted ass wonky where you want to leave, but you're just going like, okay, yeah, there we go, yep, and we're off again.
I mean, it's just like they used JJ and Chris were forced to use every plot convenience that they did, like the fucking like. We knew that there was going to be some convenient. You always know in Star Wars there's going to be plot convenience because of the Force. Like, that's what it's there for. Like,
it's the ultimate plot armor for sure.
Yeah. So, like, you have moments like that where, like, Kylo grabs a necklace off of Pisana, but then 35 seconds later, they're like, okay, this thing came from Pisana. We could tell. All right, fine. And then one moment that, like, I kind of internally laughed at was right up front where, like, she's doing her training. She's mad at herself because she failed. She gives the saber back to Leia. I want to earn this. 3 minutes later.
She earned it.
Yeah. She, here you go. You earned the saber now. Get out of here.
After basically yelling at Leia, like, hey, I'm going to fucking leave even if you don't want me to, because you would have done it.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it's moments like that where you know that that the time constraint, and I don't know who put it on there. Like, I don't know if Iger told him, you got 2.5 hours, you better make it work.
Like, at this point, I'm literally blaming everything on Bob Iger. I'm also blaming the fact that George wasn't at the premiere on him, because I'm telling you, man, if you think about what Iger did with his book tour, he was essentially using anecdotes about George at George's expense to get headlines for his fucking book.
Yeah, I mean, it was
like
it
calling
was
him out, like,
super shitty.
George wasn't happy, and George was whining about it, and we made him sign a no bitching clause. It's like, dude, just, you know what? George's ideas might have been out there, and you jerked him around with the treatments. Just leave him alone. Don't use him to sell your fucking book.
Yeah, I mean, that was super fucked up. So
I mean, let me yell at him about the prequels.
Yeah.
You don't fuck with him to sell books.
I feel like with an hour, with 35 to 40, that's a 10 out of 10 movie.
Yeah.
Like,
No.
I don't give a fuck what you say. The only thing that's missing from that movie is character development and exposition. And, like, that's all done with time. And they just
you could argue it's not even so much character development. It's just adding to the building of the worlds that they've created with each other, and then this, that, and the other things. So one other cool moment I did want to mention before we move on to a truncated Mando recap, because Nick and I were like two old ladies when we get excited about Star Wars movies, apparently. Rey's saber. Loved it.
I like it. Yeah, because
it's so her. I mean, it's so like scavenger-ish, because it is. It's her staff. She cut it down. At one point in time, it's like, oh man, she did give herself a bow staff, but I do think it's a single blade. But I love how Jakku-ish it looks. That's the best way I can describe it. I mean, it's like pretty ghetto looking.
Yeah, I mean, she
industrial, I guess. I don't know how to like.
Like, she went a completely different direction than.
And then
Luke
the color.
did.
I mean, what would you call that? Is that the orange? Or is
it's
that
like
the
yellow. Yeah, I saw it as yellow, and like that perfectly, again, captures the environment that she was. It's fucking the color of sand. Anakin would hate it. Like,
there you go. Anakin, we love you, brother. Rise, we love him. All right, well, I mean, I think it's safe to say that the Star Wars Time buddies enjoyed The Rise of Skywalker. They're not going to say it's perfect. One of them's going to tell you that you definitely should go see it again if you felt a little weird about your first viewing, because your feelings could change, and they could change in a very positive fashion. But before we leave you, because we could be leaving you for an extended period of time because the holidays are coming up and Nick's heading home, and we don't really feel like sitting down and having to work. You never know, maybe one of us will fire up a solo cast. But before we leave you, we want to just give our thoughts on the latest episode of The Mandalorian, which it was a rough one. It ended, it was kind of a very somber cliffhanger, if you will. And we usually, we do Easter eggs and this, that, and the other thing. I'm saying, Nick, let's just get right into our summary of the episode, our general feelings, the top moments. Like I said in my recap review, but man, this Deborah Chow girl, she's pretty good at this stuff.
Oh yeah, I mean, knowing that she owns Kenobi series is like the most cozy, warm, and cuddly feeling that I can have, because like the 2 episodes that she's done so far have been the 2 best episodes of the series. Like,
yeah, they've been, you could argue, the linchpin episodes. Episode 3 she did, that was like the big establishment of like, this is who the Mandalorian is, this is the main gist of the show, he's going to be on the run with this kid. And now this one, you could argue, was they're going back and he's collecting on his, not debts, but on the relationships he's forged since that episode, and with our buddy Queel before. But I loved how she spent the time to go back and collect Kara, and then Baby Yoda's fucking maneuver, man. That's obviously my first top moment, when that little motherfucker sticks his head down to look like, okay, the adults aren't watching. I'm gonna make my move, and then he goes up there and starts taking the yoke and flying. They're like almost crashing the Razor Crest.
It was perfect
to cause them to be like, all right, we need someone to watch this motherfucker now. And so they go back to my new favorite pure alien character of all time, Star Wars. I mean, yes, he's under Chewbacca. and Babu Frick might have moved in the third already.
Yeah, Babu
but
was
Queel,
great.
man, Jesus, going back to see him again and seeing what he did with IG-11. I mean, what a great character, and man, Nick Nolte, what a job.
Dude, I mean, like, knowing that he did all of that work from essentially like an ADR closet that's miles away from wherever like filming was happening is pretty stunning because, yeah, I mean, the voice over is perfect, and then the way that Queel has been used in this series was fantastic. I mean, it's unfortunate that he gets roasted because I would have liked to see him continue on, but
yeah, that sucked, man. That was but it was an honorable death. It was one of the better
Yes.
Star Wars deaths, if you will. It was kind of Obi-Wan Kenobi-ish, where it's not like Queel knew he was toast. I mean, he didn't know that they'd be listening into their communicators, but there is something to say, man. Did Gideon know something? Is someone selling them out again? Like, it felt like Gideon knew that they were fucking over the client, right?
yeah.
I
And
mean, he
don't
just
know-
opens fire on him like, hey, fuck you guys. If the baby was in there, he would have killed it anyways, but he made it clear he wants it.
I mean, maybe it's because they had that open comm the whole time, and like he
Okay,
just
yeah.
heard him. Like he was just
Yeah.
like, "Oh, well, these motherfuckers are playing you. You're an
that
idiot."
That sucked, man, just because you knew as soon as those guys took off, you're like, he's fucking toast.
Yeah. Also, I mean, like finding out that Gideon is like, I think we might have got it twisted because I'm not sure if before.
Yeah, no,
Mando dropped.
I at least did. I was going with the client was higher rank. Gideon's the fucking guy. Like, he's
Yeah.
clearly the big bad and possibly is going to be the big bad for seasons moving forward.
Yeah, exactly. So his
Because that's a top moment there, man. His fucking arrival, Jesus. I mean, just pre-arrival, they light up that cantina and kill the client, and then the way he comes in on that modified tie, it's like, fuck.
Yeah, that was sick. I mean, him as a character is going to be something really fun to continue to track. And, I assume that he's going to be a central figure in episode 8, the final episode of this season. And then I do not think he's going to get wasted in one episode. think
I
that
don't
would be a
either.
foolish
And I know
use
we're
of
going to
that
get a
character.
big moment in 8 because it was teased in the trailer, but you remember Mando's essentially flying up there and ratcheting himself onto Gideon's tie.
Yeah.
So I'm predicting Gideon more than likely's got Homeboy.
Yeah.
He's flying away, and our guy is going for him. So obviously we're not through top moments, but while I'm talking about that, do you think 8's going to end with the kid in Gideon's possession or Mando's?
I think if you want to properly set up season 2 in terms of like hype,
You're
it's
going to do
gotta
it
be
to
with
us, Nick,
Gideon.
aren't you? You're going to do it
Yeah.
to us.
You gotta. He's got to be with Gideon.
I know, dude. It's killing me.
Uh,
Oh, I'm getting sad already just thinking about it, but I know it's coming.
yeah, it's gonna suck because that
You
little
never know. I
baby-
mean, there is always the good guy plot armor, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it could still end on a positive note and maybe something else tragic happens, but I just have a feeling they're going to be like, because, I mean, again, they had to write this before they knew what the reception was going to be by all of us.
yeah,
So there's a good chance they probably had to write it like, all right, if we want these people to come back and keep paying that $6, let's really fucking drop a cliffhanger that's going to eat their souls alive for a year or so.
yeah, exactly. So
Another moment I enjoyed, and just the fact that he's back, the IG training montage, I loved it. I mean, we got more Queel and his tender side and his mechanical abilities, but I thought it was curious that IG was getting in all these promotions, and now we know why. I mean, there's a good chance he's going to be back for good, and now that his programming has been altered, he's probably going to be an asset or a helper for Mando, but also a new interesting relationship due to Mando's disgust of droids.
yeah, exactly. That's what I'm going to mention is that he has this aversion to droids, and it's going to be interesting to see. How long
I'm
it takes to
hoping
get over it.
Mando learns to love droids again through the reformed IG-11.
Yeah, that would be perfect. I mean, one, because it keeps Taika Waititi around a little bit longer, and two,
And guess who's directing the finale?
Yeah, him.
Yep,
So
Taika's got it. So
yeah.
he probably gave himself some scenes.
Yeah, he'll be in there for sure. But I do like that he's
Another
back in.
moment, dude. Didn't quite see this one coming, but our little guy's got the dark side in him a little bit, huh?
Dude, he does. Like
He fucking force choked her without thinking.
Like that is. And like
I've never seen any light side user do that except Anakin Skywalker, and he already committed to the dark.
Yeah, he had turned already. I mean, that is. It's just unbridled. I mean, like it's unbridled force ability because like he doesn't know.
He saw his buddy. He thought his buddy was in distress.
Yeah, I mean, it's like what a dog would do if, like, you're play fighting with somebody. Like, if you're
I just love the expression they gave him, like, and he was doing the full-on force choke.
Yeah, and, like, I mean, Baby Yoda is, like, if there's one thing that is not divisive about Star Wars right now, it's fucking Baby Yoda.
Yeah,
and,
that's for damn sure.
They've just killed, like, Favreau and Filoni have made this character into, like he's an unassailable character.
Yeah,
like
he is. He's invincible. Even the fandom menace can't come from him.
No.
Speaking of him, in this, I mean, I mentioned it, but clearly his healing moment that's in there for a reason. Now that was just to kind of keep building to this fact that the Force, what you guys thought was the Force back in the originals, and in the prequels, we tried to show you the Jedis could do some crazy stuff, but then we went away once we got to Attack of the Clones, but. Now they're just full on like, if you have the Force, you are a god.
Yeah, it's like you can heal
at that capacity. Like if you have the ability of a Yoda species to just be predetermined to have an affinity for high midichlorian counts, or if you're a dyad of the Force, you're essentially a god.
I mean, like for the Yoda species of characters. It just seems innate to them too, because like he doesn't like Baby Yoda does not know what he's doing. He can feel it within him. So he sees this person is hurt. They're trying to save his life. And there's just a mechanism in his brain that goes off and says, if I go over there and touch this guy, I can save him. So like it's ingrained in their species to be powerful Force users from like when they're infants, like 50 years old.
So we got a lot of Baby Yoda in this episode. I mean, we got some growth. I mean, I think really the last point I have on this episode, and I ran with another video on if you want to check it out, youtube.com/Star Wars Time Show, but I'm running with now, Nick, Baby Yoda is not a clone based on the discussion Mando and Queel have when they show up again, when Queel starts it with like, oh man, it doesn't look like he's aged, which I think it's trying to tell us that Mando's probably been gone from Queel for months.
Yeah.
Maybe a year even. But he's like, he hasn't aged, and Mando's like, yeah, I think he's strand cast.
Yeah.
But then Queel's like, no, he doesn't look strand cast because I've worked in gene farms, and Yoda looks evolved, too ugly.
Yeah, yeah.
So I think because someone already yelled at me in the comments, he's like, dude, you completely misinterpreted what they're saying. They're talking about like gene therapy, master race type of stuff. I'm like, semantically, probably I could see that, but you could also, from my point of view, I think you could argue that he's not a clone. Like strand cast to me means there's gene manipulation, cloning. It's all the same shit.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of
it's
the way that
shit.
I took it too. Yeah, I mean, now I don't know what the significance of Pershing is now. I don't know if like. It's interesting. It's going to be interesting to see if that character reinserts himself into the series, because that's what led us to believe early on that he was a clone.
Oh, totally.
Like, but
I mean, the way
blah.
Gideon talks about the baby's like, I need it. I mean, it's like, wow, this guy's got a hard on for this thing. So I'm still like, my other two theories are still out there that it is truly the last of Yoda species kind, and they want its genes for gene therapy. Sith troopers, whatever.
Yeah.
Or again, I mean, I think at this point I could probably kill this one after seeing Tross. Maybe they wanted it for some of the technology required to keep Palpatine sustained.
Yeah.
But I think this episode did a lot for us, right? It kind of picked up the pieces again. We had those nice, as some of you called them, filler episodes to expand the world of the Mandalorian. But then Deborah brought it all back together in 7 and set us up nicely for this finale, which I think is going to be amazing, but depressing in the same light.
Yeah. I mean, I love where the series is going now. Deborah is, has inserted herself in there as one of the best Star Wars directors that's going right now. So I'm excited to see what she does with Kenobi. And yeah, dude, I think this was a perfect setup episode to draw us into the final one of the season. And then, we'll see where we go when season 2 rolls around. But man, I mean, I don't know how you make a better episode than what Deborah Chow just made. Like, that one was so fucking killer. Like, just the moments where you're like cutting between like Kuiil running on the blurg, the stormtroopers on the bikes, Mando radioing in, and everything like that. It's just so it built tension. Perfectly.
Kuiil, are you there? I was like, oh fuck.
Yeah.
No.
It was perfect tension building moments. So yeah, I mean, I'm super excited to see how the series closes out the first season, and if it ends with Baby Yoda in the hands of the Empire or the Imperial Remnant, then holy shit, it's gonna be a long wait to season 2.
I don't know if I'll be able to get through that. I might have to go to rehab or something, or like a self-help group.
Yeah, it's fucking crazy, but.
All right, well, dude, that was fun. I have been needing to talk to you about the Rise of Skywalker. I mean, it was definitely a different conversation than we had with our post The Last Jedi screening, which is fun. Hey, that's why we do what we do. We're not all meant to be clones of each other and all groupthink. It's okay to have different opinions, but I'm not going to lie. It's more fun when you agree on things with people. So it was a great talk with Nick. Hopefully you all enjoyed listening to our reactions, opinions, breakdown of Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker, the supposed final movie in the Skywalker saga. You never know. I would sure love to see Daisy Ridley break out the Skywalker again, because I thought she was awesome in Tross. And obviously, Mando just keeps laying him up, knocking him down, killing it. We love it. We love all of you. I don't know if this is the last time you'll be hearing from us in 2019. If it is, thank you for making it a fantastic year for the Star Wars Time boys. We saw the site grow. We saw our subscriptions grow across all the platforms, but we still need your help. I'm not kidding around. You all are the reason we do what we do, but we need the feedback. We need sharing. We need interactions. We need you to tell all of your Star Wars nut friends about StarWarsTime.net, because once they get over there, they can see all the content. They can sub to all the platforms. They can find our YouTube channel, and that's really all we need you to do. We want a following. We want this community to keep taking off. So keep at it. You foot soldiers out there, you know who you are. We appreciate you more than we can ever let you know. I mean, if we were cool, if we were rich, obviously we'd be slinging hats and gear out to everybody. But we're not there yet. But we can get there with your help. Keep beating the Star Wars Time Show drum. We love you. Remember, there's always time for Star Wars Time. And you should also remember, if you listen to the Star Wars Time Show, the Force will be with you. Always.